Hello, everyone. Welcome to our annual Global Accessibility Awareness Day event. I think some folks are still trickling in, but we are going to get started. So thank you very much for joining us today. We're super excited to bring you this event in partnership with our Brightspace community and D2L accessibility team. I'm Alex Gligoric. I'm our Vice President of User Experience at D2L, and I'm super excited and pleased to welcome you to today's discussion, which is about supporting needs in cognitive needs in teaching and learning. The conversation today will highlight the importance of supporting diverse cognitive needs in education and creating more inclusive experiences for learners and educators. Before we start, I think Julia put in the chat, the webinar is being recorded, and so we will share that out with everyone who's registered afterward. And you can feel free to share that with any of your colleagues or anyone else who may not be able to join us live. So with that, we'll start looking at our agenda for today. Quick look. We'll start with a brief overview of Global Accessibility Awareness Day and D2L's commitment to accessibility, which I will cover. And then we'll move on to an activity around accessibility and follow that with our main event, which is our panel discussion. We will wrap that event today with announcing prize winners. So those of you who participate in the accessibility activity, there will be a draw to win a $25 gift card. So we will announce that toward the end, and then we'll wrap up with other ways to get involved with continuing supporting accessibility and advocating for accessibility. So I'll kick it off with the overview about Global Accessibility Awareness Day. So on screen, we can see a couple of pieces of information. So Accessibility Awareness Day was co-founded by Joe Devon and Jennison Ascension. I have a snippet on screen of Joe Devon's blog post where he's challenging web developers across the globe to increase awareness about accessibility and digital accessibility in particular. Jennison Ascension saw this post and tweeted that he would further spread the awareness of this day and help him to organize it. And together, they organized the first Global Accessibility Awareness Day in 2012. And we know one of the primary goals of Global Accessibility Awareness Day is to raise awareness about digital accessibility and to inspire action for us here today. You can next slide. Thank you. So a little bit about accessibility in general. Uh, there was a disability fact sheet produced by the WHO in 2023, and that stated that 1.3 billion people worldwide experience significant disability. At the time of that report, that represented about 16% of the world's population. There's another data point here I think that's important, which is the CDC in the US in particular created a report that out of all of the US population, about 61 million adults reported having a disability, and 1 in 10 of those adults reported that disability being related to cognitive. And so if we take those two statistics and then we also look at a report by WebAIM, which is called the Million Report. They've done a new one in 2026. That report looks at many factors, but also looks at web content accessibility guideline failures of homepages across the web. And it found this year that 95.9% of homepages have some WCAG 2 failure. So this is a super slowly improving metric. Over the past 7 years, the failures have decreased by about 1.9%. So looking at these statistics together, we can see the scope of how many people are living with disabilities, and then the state of the web, which has a significant amount of problems with its access using assistive technology. So really important to focus on accessibility with these pieces of information. Next slide, please. Thank you. So a little bit about common disabilities, just for everyone's awareness. There are different sort of categories or types or areas of disability that we see commonly. So those are related to vision, hearing, motor, and cognitive disabilities. These disabilities may be permanent, temporary, or situational. So as an example, if one is deaf, this would represent a permanent hearing disability. If you had an ear infection, it would be more of a temporary one. And then if you're in a really loud environment, that may be representative of a situational hearing disability. On screen, I have an artifact, an inclusive design artifact from Microsoft which outlines a few examples of different areas of disability, so touch, sight, hearing, and speaking, and then some examples of permanent ones, temporary ones, and situational ones within those categories. People with disabilities may use assistive technology to access digital experiences. So it's really important to advocate and be aware that there's different methods of access and the importance of making web accessible so that everyone has a great experience. Some examples of assistive technology. Uh, these are just a few. There's a myriad of different types, and they're also used in combination. So it may not be, a single piece of assistive technology that's used by any person. But we have a set that are primarily geared to these areas that I'll give some examples towards. So cognitive disability assistive technology, or AT. You have things such as programmable keyboards, e-readers, and alternate communication devices. On screen, there is a photo of a tablet that has pictures of little cards or tiles that you can touch, and upon touching those, it would speak the phrase that is associated with that. So that's a helpful communication assistive technology. With sensory disabilities, we have things such as screen readers, screen magnifiers, or high contrast keyboards that can help with accessing digital experiences. On screen, there is a photo of a high contrast keyboard where the keys have a really strong yellow background and then a high contrast black on top of it for the printed characters to help you identify. They are quite a bit larger than a standard keyboard to help you identify the keys more easily. And then for physical disabilities, there are assistive technologies such as alternative keyboard, sip and puff joystick mouse, roller joystick mouse, and Jelly Bean switch. There is a photo of someone using a sip and puff device, which allows you to control with your mouth the position of a mouse cursor, and then sip or breathe in order to execute a command that you can configure, or breathe out, so puff into the device, which is kind of like a straw to help you do different commands. So it's an alternative way to control your device. With D2L, our commitment to accessibility in learning goes across our full product development process. So we start with research that helps us understand problems and user needs. We do exploration and design to look at all the possible ways we could help improve or solve or meet those needs. And then we will converge and define a solution and test that. Throughout this process, we do research with people, and many of those people have different disabilities, may or may not be using assistive technology. And so we try, as part of our accessibility by design philosophy and principle, we include those with disabilities in our research so that we can ensure that we're building products of high quality and that are useful and usable by everyone. The last thing I will just mention is before I turn it over for our activity, as I wrap up here, I'm just wanted to end with this quote. So, Dr. Sam Chandrashekar, who will be leading our panel discussion today, she says that for us, accessibility is a journey and not a destination. And she's super excited about the future possibilities for transforming the way the world learns. uh, Accessibility is such an important part for creating inclusive learning experience and for transforming the way the world learns, which is D2L's mission. And we're hoping that today the conversation will inspire new ideas, reinforce the importance of supporting diverse learner needs, and really empower everyone here to continue building with accessibility in mind, both in your organizations, in the products you create, and within your communities. So with that, I think we can move on to our accessibility activity.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Alex. Thanks for joining us, everyone. We wanted to kick our event off with a quick accessibility activity. Wanted to preface that this is not about speed or accuracy. We just want to encourage participation. So definitely leverage the chat feature inside Zoom to participate and respond to the questions that we'll pose. Also, a quick disclaimer: participation during the activity time will count towards eligibility for a chance to win the prize as stated. As we move into the panel, we'll then wrap up the activity eligibility. All right. So with that, let's dive into our first activity. The deck is shared by Aggie in the chat. This will include all the images and accessibility best practices as well. So what you'll see on the screen is, if we can move to the next one, Julia, a quick memory activity. We have 7 items displayed on the screen, and I will also list them out. Please take a minute to rehearse these. So we'll start off with shoes, kettle, baby, rabbit, dog, apple, and building. Let's move to the next slide, Julia. All right, so let's test your memory. If you can, in the chat, please list out the items that I called out, as well as we displayed on the screen as well. All right, I see the responses flooding in. Perfect. Julia, we can display the answers. The answers were shoe, kettle, baby, rabbit, dog, apple, building. All right. So with that, what's the takeaway here? We should be designing for memory support, not for memory load. Learning should build understanding and not just memory recall. We didn't want you to do what we just did. Keep key information visible, not hidden, and use checklist, reminders, etc. We also encourage to ensure that you use multimodal input to help learners with their memory support. All right, let's move forward. Our second activity is helping us paraphrase something which is very well written. Aggie has also placed the write-up in the chat. But what the write-up is, in a well-intentioned yet operationally over-engineered attempt to maintain optimal household efficiency and nutritional consistency, I initiated a comprehensive color-coded multi-day meal planning framework that, despite its meticulously curated structure, ultimately resulted in ordering takeout after the entire planning endeavor and had thoroughly exhausted my remaining motivation. Can this be said more simply? Let's see in the chat. Right, I'll give it maybe another minute. Right. I see a theme flurrying into the chat. Well, that's very much aligned with what we had. And then, Julia, if you can click next, this is very closely aligned to what we had as put in as well. Example, I made a detailed meal plan, but after all that effort, I got tired and ordered takeout. Awesome. Thanks so much for participating in this one. But really, the key takeaway here is let's just use plain language that clears the path to learning. Use plain language, direct wording, avoid that jargon, or explain it when needed. And it's important to keep sentences short to enhance learner experience. Awesome. All right, the third and final activity for today is a little bit of a hunt. Find a resource. What we want you to do is find a resource in D2L Academy that can help you create inclusive learning experiences in Brightspace using artificial intelligence. As a hint, Aggie will be dropping into a chat a good place for you to start off and look for a resource that can help you do just that. Again, you're looking for a resource in Academy that will help you create that inclusive learning experience in Brightspace using AI. Once you find the name of the course, feel free to drop it in the chat. Perfect. Awesome. Thanks so much for, again, putting in the answers in the chat. Julia, if you toggle in next. Inclusive digital learning and artificial intelligence is that course that you will be able to access through your community account. This is a freemium resource made available in partnership with the D2L accessibility team in the D2L Academy. So, thanks so much for participating in the activity. We will do a draw of all the participants and announce them at the end of the session. I'm happy to pass it off to Dr. Sam to kick us off for our main event. Thanks everyone for participating.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to D2L's Global Accessibility Awareness Day 2026. Thank you for your participation so far and hope you're having a good time. I'm really curious who's going to win that $25. We are also absolutely delighted to welcome you to this panel discussion on supporting cognitive needs in teaching and learning. This is all about aligning instruction with how the human brain processes, stores, and retrieves information. There couldn't actually be a more relevant topic for GAAD because this year's GAAD theme is Design, Develop, Deliver. And as panelists, I have four accessibility experts engaged in creating Brightspace and related products who bring their hearts to work every day. Please meet the panelists, Susan McInnes, Senior Product Manager, AJ Karakush, Senior UX Researcher, Jeff Gertz, Principal Product Designer, and Nathan Koop, Senior Manager, Software Engineering. We're all assembled here today to talk about how accessibility, and within that, cognitive accessibility, is taken care of while our experts design, develop, and deliver our products and features. But before we dive into the discussion, I'm curious about one thing. I want to ask each panelist a question. When did you personally first learn about cognitive disability? Susan, could you start and then pass the baton to AJ and then Jeff and Nathan, please?
Absolutely. So I don't have a specific event when I first learned about cognitive disability. I've kind of learned about it over time. That being said, being a relatively new parent, there's lack of sleep, there's many different items on my mind at all times these days, which is the situational cognitive load that I've been dealing with recently. AJ, I'll pass things to you.
Thank you, Susan. I have actually met with learned about cognitive disability way before when I was grade eight, because I was actually diagnosed with learning disabilities, and that kind of brought a different perspective into what I have been going through as a student and how I can manage actually moving forward. Yeah, so I'm going to give it to Jeff.
Thanks. Yeah, like Susan, I struggle to think about a very specific event where I became aware of cognitive disabilities. But I think I can remember when I started thinking about it as it relates to web accessibility, and I think it was when we were working on the special access feature in the LMS, and that was a feature that let instructors provide special access to things like quizzes for students that needed more time or additional access. But yeah, that's what comes to mind for me. Over to Nathan.
Yeah. When I was a teenager, my mom was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, and I didn't have the words at that time, but she would have these days when she would just have some brain haze and just wouldn't be able to process those well. We just ended up working around that, and so that's probably the first time I like dealt with cognitive disabilities. Back to you, Sam.
Uh, I can't resist the temptation to share my story. I was 50 years old. I applied to a master's program in London, UK. I was asked to fill a form. It said, "Do you have dyslexia?" I had to look up the dictionary. Believe me, that was me 20 years ago because we were not familiar with that in India. So, yeah, that's how I started. And boy, where am I now today? Thanks to D2L. We have to rush. Let's move into the discussion. Before that, I want to say D2L is unique because while in most organizations, accessibility is a part of HR under DEI initiatives or it's a part of legal under compliance, at D2L, accessibility is a part of the product org. And our chief product officer is the torchbearer. Right now, he's in, I don't know, in Singapore or Melbourne or wherever talking about accessibility. And that gives you a place of pride, Susan, as the senior product manager, one of the senior product managers. Could you share when making roadmap and prioritization decisions, how do we intentionally account for cognitive load, and how do you make ease of use for both educators and learners possible?
Yeah, great question. So cognitive needs are fundamental problems that we need to solve. It's not just a design detail. So when we're defining roadmap problems, we need to think about what core user problems are, and how we can better guide users on what to do next, and reduce that cognitive load so that they can orient themselves better and know where the next thing that they need to go is. So one example of how this can be done is through consistent workflows. Over the years, D2L has invested time in improving our authoring workflows for various activities to ensure that they're consistent. This allows authors or instructors to be familiar with where they need to go to edit a title, a description, availability dates, different activity-specific settings. Recently, we've also been working on improving our display of activities so that there's consistency there. So after we've defined problems about what we would like to address, we moved on to roadmap prioritization. So part of our prioritization is we don't always include features that add net new functionality, but sometimes instead we focus on improving what has already existed in different ways, so that we can reduce that confusion and the mental effort required to complete various tasks. So sometimes success isn't just that we shipped something, it's that we shipped something that it makes the experience feel simpler, cleaner, easier to use. As Sam mentioned, the accessibility team at D2L is included as part of our larger product organization. Having this structure means that the focus is with product management when we're making our decisions about what we need to do next, to make sure that accessibility ideas are made right from initial product discovery. So focusing on the accessibility for the problem to solve within product gives us the opportunity to make sure that the choices are made to build things right. And a key part of this is that we work very closely with our design and user research teams through the entire problem identification and prioritization steps to make sure that we have the right thing that we're building.
That's awesome that you work with the design and research team. Um, that makes me go to AJ next. Let's hear from our research expert and then our design expert. So AJ, as our senior UX researcher, could you share how we incorporate cognitive accessibility into UX research practices?
Awesome question, Sam. Thank you. So one thing actually I want to add, given the question you asked to Susan, we also do like iterative usability testings where we discover like movements our part like with real users where we discover our participants like have uncertainties or where they feel overwhelmed or unsure about what's the next step in the workflows we are building. And those like movements really help, like, and the insights we are bringing from those studies helping the design team to prioritize improvements on like where they're going to make the improvement to lower the actually cognitive friction and make these experiences more smooth for everyone, but especially with like users with neurodivergence. But if we come to specifically about like where we incorporate cognitive accessibility, we run like inclusive UX research studies beyond the traditional usability research studies we are doing, and also accessibility focus UX testings as well. And like we began incorporating actually cognitive accessibility and like accessibility in general into our process, like before than many other companies, I would say. Like we have an UX research program at D2L where educators, admins, and like learners can sign up from like K-12 higher education and corporate. And 7 years ago, we carefully added questions about accessibility in our sign up sheet. So and we are explicitly asking about consent from our participant to get invitations about like fully accessibility focused studies. So this allowed us to actually include participants who is in the roles we are looking for and also who have disabilities or use assistive technologies into our studies. Somebody raised their hand from our panel.
I'll
Joe?
just I'll just weigh in.
Yeah.
Yeah, so from an engineering side, we've been invited along with these research studies. So we get to sit in the room with the participant and see where they are succeeding really well, and we've done a great job. And they also get to see the unpleasant side where people stumble and the places where we made decisions that we thought were good and had like some unforeseen consequence for this individual. And it's a huge learning experience for us. And it's been very valuable from like a technical side, but also just like a very empathy building side where you get to see somebody do something and where we felt it was going to be good. And then we're like, oh, we missed the mark here. And we get to go back and do better next time before it goes out to everybody. So back to you, Jay.
You're absolutely correct, Nathan. We've always believed that we don't need to teach our developers how to do accessible coding. What we need to teach them is why. Why is it important? And nothing better than exposing them directly to a user who's using their product in a way that they didn't expect. Right. Jeff, did you have something to share? Or was it a sleight of hand that put you?
I was testing the raise hand feature for Nathan.
Okay. So, AJ, are you done or you want to say something more?
I can just add two small things as well.
Uh-huh.
Like on some of the studies we are running, we are getting like some very targeted questions from designers about cognitive accessibility, like when we added actually the timers into our quiz feature, and the designers were coming to us like, hey, we want to make sure this timer is just helping to the learners and not distracting them or impacting negatively in other ways. So we sometimes get like these really juicy questions from our designers to run our studies. And sometimes like with Jeff and Nathan, we run like biannual accessibility testings actually on our daylight components. And it allows us to discover how we can improve our newly designed or like recently improved our components in accessibility side as well. And I think that's a great point to hand things off to Jeff.
Yeah, but then before handing it to Jeff, I want to appreciate how much accessibility you brought into research, AJ. And I clearly remember, was it pre-COVID, post-COVID, when you immediately after you joined, you sat down and did that exercise of making that questionnaire,
Yes.
including, yeah. So Nathan, anything you want to add?
No, just
You
misclicking.
guys are playing with the raise hands. I'm going to ignore y'all now. So since AJ mentioned daylight and you are a daylight expert, can you talk about, Jeff, can you talk about design systems role in, I would say specifically about cognitive accessibility. I know you do a lot of patterns and every single pattern has accessibility component, but yeah, could you speak to that?
Yeah, happy to. So if you don't know what a design system is, it kind of encapsulates our design language or the consistent ways that we solve problems in the UI. So that breaks down into a few key things that help to bolster our cognitive accessibility. The three basic tenements of it are foundational styles like colors and typography, shared components like buttons and menus and the things you physically interact with in the UI, and then patterns, which is, how do you use those components in combination with each other to solve problems for users. So our foundational styles, when it comes to our colors, we only have four meaningful colors that are used in consistent ways throughout the platform. That helps people learn and understand what it means when they see certain colors. And then same thing with typography. We have very few typographical styles, which is on purpose so that we're not kind of overusing, styles in our typography that can kind of overwhelm people and make it hard to recognize things. Our shared components, we have important building blocks like primary buttons that draw attention, and we make sure to use only one primary action in any given workflow so that it's easy for the user to determine what the next action is without having to read and understand everything on the page first. Um, and then for patterns, we have things like progressive disclosure where we try to ensure we're not offering too many options up front to users so we can kind of progressively offer additional features as they become necessary. So that's, things like collapsible widgets or, groups of buttons that automatically overflow after three buttons. There's a number of ways that the design system supports progressive disclosure and other good cognitive practices. And yeah, so those are the three ways that our design system typically supports cognitive accessibility.
Awesome. And then you create simple, consistent, predictable systems. That's fundamentally what we believe in offering everybody. And then there's a ton of UDL alignment and a ton of other ways in which we ensure cognitive ease in delivery, in assessment, in feedback. I mean, I could speak for an hour, but
Yeah.
what makes me curious is I can understand research and accessibility. I can understand design and accessibility. Engineering, Nathan, I thought was meh, coding what the designers have already written down in their doc. But I know you do a lot of things. You have a separate whole uh, team only focused on accessibility. So can you tell us more about that?
Yeah. So at D2L, like I've been here for 4 years and I've been really honored and pleased to join a team with like a pretty significant level of accessibility understanding. And like Jeff is a key part of that. But we got developers who've been around for 15 plus years with a large understanding of accessibility and care for it. And that's because we built up a culture inside of D2L. And as Dr. Sam had mentioned earlier, our chief of product, Christian Pantel, has been like a flag bearer for accessibility and hammering it home all the time. So that's part of what we do here is it's part of our DNA to have accessible software. So it comes from a bit of from our culture. From an pure engineering side, we've developed an internal like component library. So Jeff talked about the design system, and that design system is like the concept, and the component library is the actual implementation, the tangible implementation of that concept. So our developers have like a really strong working relationship with Jeff and the other designers, and they're consistently going back and forth. It's like this is like we're raising things like this color contrast doesn't meet the needs. We're if we put the button here, how does that impact this other thing that you might not have been thinking about when you're scoping out your designs? So there's like a lot of back and forth that goes on. Um, so we built this component library that's built for general accessibility. So it's got great accessibility for screen readers, but it's also like the design system. It's got those consistent colors and those icons. It's got pretty consistent button positioning and terminology. So like all those things play into how we can reduce the cognitive load on the learner. We're also part of our job is like translations and localization. So having things in somebody's local language and formatted correctly reduces cognitive load. And we're building out libraries to ensure that our terminology is even more consistent than it is right now. One of the things also we work with like Susan and the product team is like we have accessibility as part of our definition of done. So we're going to build a feature. That feature needs to obviously work and needs to be have high levels of quality and be well written for from a technical perspective. It also needs to be secure and it needs to be performant, but it also on that checklist is it needs to be accessible. So that's part of when we are moving work into the done column, that needs to be done. Um, we do a ton of things in terms of accessibility. Like, yeah, we run have it automated tests through our CI/CD pipelines. I'm totally talking nerd stuff now, but like automating things that make sure that we haven't made things worse for our learners is like key. Like it's so easy to like miss something and having our automated tests tell us, no, Nathan, you messed something up. You caught your color contrast wrong. That's like so important for us. So yeah, we have a ton of interaction with product, with design and with research all the time. It's consistently conversations.
And you
Um,
also build capability, right? Through your courses and
Yeah, like we do tons of internal learning here too. So literally this afternoon, one of my principal developers is going to be sitting down with a bunch of the more senior developers internally, and doing a high level, like a very detailed look at how to improve accessibility for our learners. So it's very tactical and very in-depth usage of screen readers, how to reproduce issues that people are having, and how to deeply understand WCAG success criteria. So we do this several times a year at different levels. One is like on a high level that's for everybody, and for like product managers, designers, CSMs, and TAMs, like how to understand web accessibility, but we also do very in-depth learning consistently, and we teach amongst ourselves. So yeah.
Awesome. So Susan, I think I cut you out. Sorry. What did you want to say?
That's okay. I was going to say Nathan's talked a lot about building these centralized components and making sure that there's a library for all of those. Working with a development team that leverages a lot of those. Historically, we haven't necessarily had all of those components. And so some of what we've been doing is updating the features that we have to make sure we're using those shared components. That way, if there is an accessibility concern or change that needs to come, it happens in one place and cascades to all of the locations that component is used, rather than each individual team having to make the change down the road. And so that's one of the benefits of having these shared libraries is then if there is a change that needs made down the road, it happens in that one spot.
Right. And Nathan could do a whole 1 hour AIG talk someday about at web components. But Nathan, you also offer it to the world, right? Through GitHub.
Yeah, it's available on GitHub in our Brightspace our online. So it is open source, and you can take a look. It's called Daylight. I can see if I can find a link to share with everyone.
Brightspace.ui, I think.
If
GitHub,
Brightspace
GitHub
UI,
something
yeah.
Brightspace UI, whatever. But AJ, I know you always have research um, points to make. Probably, what do developers use for research?
Oh yeah, so like our developers are using Fable platform to run accessibility testings on the codes they're writing, and I know especially like recently more teams started like adopting those testing processes. So yeah, we are doing both like moderated and unmoderated QA testings with participants actually who use assistive technologies, and we collect insights from them on the development side as well about like what are the challenges they're going through, like what's the blockers in there. Yeah. And I know like our dev teams are trading on those like challenges they are learning from those testings.
Awesome, awesome. So there cannot be a panel that doesn't have a call to action to the audience. So I will be requesting each of you, or as many of you as who wants to answer, to say what is the single most important action item you would like the audience to take away from the panel. We're already at 11:38, which means we are 2 minutes away from our close, but I will go a couple of minutes over, and I'll apologize to Karen, but I will give you enough time if any of you wants to say something about what is the most important call to action to the audience.
I can lead off.
Mm-hmm.
And so from an engineering standpoint, like making sure that this is added to your like definition of done and make time for it. Like that's the big thing. Just bring this in as part of your culture. There's a lot of very easy things that we can do. Run your Axe DQ tests in your CI/CD pipelines. That takes very minimal effort and can provide a lot of value. So add it to your definition of done, and there's a ton of tools and things that you can leverage already.
The other thing to add it to, beyond just the definition of done, is your processes. Add it right from the beginning of when you're defining a problem, when you're discovering what the right solution is. Think about the accessibility for it.
Yeah, I'll just add too that I think you've heard this word thrown around a lot in this during this webinar, but the consistency is fundamental to usability, and usability, of course, is all about cognitive accessibility. So consistency is paramount.
And the last thing I will add to that is like, don't forget actually testing the product you're building with the actual users of that product. And make sure you also include participants as given the theme of the day, participants who is with disabilities or who use with assistive technologies. Yeah.
Awesome. I think I'll have some time for me to add that cognitive accessibility is for everybody. It's not just for those who are diagnosed with ADHD or autism or any type of neurodiversity or learning disability. It's for every one of us at some point, temporary, situational, episodic. I can't right now go into the details, but one more thing to remember, everybody was talking about shifting left, Susan, AJ, talking about beginning the accessibility way much to the left. For the past couple of years, I've been talking about shifting up accessibility, making the leaders take charge. At
Mm.
D2L, we never had to make an effort, right down from John Baker, who created the company with the vision that we want a world where learning is accessible. 26 years ago, he put that word in our D2L's vision, and we have full support from C-suite downwards. But in your own organizations, please advocate for leaders to take on accessibility as an leadership imperative, strategic imperative. You can move from compliance to competitive advantage. There are so many talks we have given. We can send you links. This morning, there was a talk with the Internet Society about the same thing. I will hand it over to Karen. Thank you very much, panelists. Let's give it over to Karen.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. It was a super, super awesome panel. I love it when we get people together and have like such wonderful, engaging conversations, and I think people will be thinking for a long time. I'm Karen Hedrick, senior accessibility strategist here at D2L, and I'm just going to wrap up and leave you with some resources and ways to keep connecting on our accessibility journey together. But hey, first thing, most exciting thing, woohoo, prizes. People are going to win stuff. Um, so uh, here at D2L, we made an accessibility enablement course for people to complete, and we're slowly releasing it as modules come out. Um, and um, we put everybody in a draw who completed the portion that's done so far, and of course somebody's going to win for participating in our fun activities with shoes and kettles and dogs and rabbits and things. Um, um, the person who gets their an a prize for the enablement, completing the enablement course gets a Bravo and a $25 gift card, and the person who gets the prize for participating in the activities gets a $25 gift card of their choice, and we'll be in touch with both of those people after the event. So the course completion winner is Christy Burrow. Woo! And the audience activity winner is Scott Webster from Suncrest College. Ooh, I think I saw one of his answers come in. Hey, so congratulations to both of you guys. People will be in touch, and thanks everybody for participating. It made it so much fun. And before we close, I wanted to share a few opportunities to continue learning and connecting with the accessibility community. There's first the accessibility interest group. Every month, first Thursday of every month, we meet on Zoom, and we have people like external and internal, like D2Lers, all come together. And every month we have a speaker to either talk about a product or experiences or share best practices or all that fun stuff. And it's also just a wonderful community where people can share challenges, ask questions, learn from each other. It's just great. So if you want to join the accessibility interest group, there will be links to join. We have a community space, and yeah, feel free to join, and hey, maybe you can be a speaker. Woo! If you want to further deepen your knowledge and the accessibility Academy, we have some courses. One we wanted to highlight, which everybody so beautifully found, and yeah, all these courses are free of charge. But the Inclusive Digital Learning and AI course, which everybody found, so go check it out if you want. There's It talks about AI supported features in Brightspace and how they help strengthen inclusive learning experiences. And improve learner engagement while encouraging thoughtful and accessible implementation practices. So also, and finally, if you're going to Phoenix to go to Fusion, check out the Cognitive Accessibility and AI panel that is being moderated by our very own Sam Chandrashekar. Um, and it's called Optimizing Productive Struggle and in Generative AI Assisted Learning with strategies based on metacognition uh, and UDL, or Universal Design for Learning. We've got on stage, we have Dr. Emma O'Neill, professor at University College Dublin, and Dr. Elizabeth Pearsall, assistant provost at the teaching and of teaching and learning at the American College of Financial Services, and our very own Aaron Steed, a director of user experience strategy at D2L, and Dr. Sam will moderate the discussion, and on adapting to AI and assisted learning without compromising inclusivity, effectiveness, leading to transformative education for everyone. So check it out. And thanks everybody for coming out in recognition of Global Accessibility Awareness Day. It's really great to be part of this important conversation and continue our accessibility journey together. And I hope you got some insights and inspiration to share within your own organizations and communities. And the recording will be shared along with the resources, so watch out for that follow-up information. And if you have any more questions, you can feel free to join the Accessibility Interest Group or shoot an email to accessibility@d2l.com. So thanks everybody for coming out.